Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started with our final breakout session for this year's RailsConf. We made it. We have a great talk planned for you here today. We have Dawn, who is a New Zealand turned Canadian transplant who's been working with Ruby on Rails for over 10 years. Currently, she's working as a principal engineer at Thinkific, living up the mountain life in Vancouver, Canada. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Dawn Richardson.
Hello, Ruby friends. I'm very excited to be here. As Kevin mentioned, it's actually my 10-year Ruby anniversary. In 2014, I attended my first RubyConf, and I was welcomed with such open arms and kindness, I decided that this was the community I wanted to keep hanging out with. But yeah, a long-time audience member, it is my first time on stage, so give me lots of smiles. So today I will be talking to you about the technical career path. So moving beyond senior into technical leadership, into what the industry is often referring to these days as staff plus roles. So I'll be sharing with you my personal journey in growing in one of these roles over the past 3 years and lessons I've learned along the way. So if you're considering a staff plus role, my hope is that this talk might give you an insight into what it might look like compared to a senior role. And if you're already in a staff plus role, my hope is you can learn something from the strategies I'm doing to do the role more effectively now. So first, who am I? My name is Dawn, or Dawn for all you North Americans. This is me hanging out in the mountains in Vancouver, my hometown, Canada. But this is not a Canadian accent, I am from New Zealand. Just to clarify, New Zealand not the same as Australia. This is a very important distinction. We're a proud, independent little island, very unique and different, as you can tell from our flag, where we very clearly have one less star. Thank you very much. So I am a principal engineer at a company called Thinkific. This is us at our last company retreat. We're an online platform that's allowed over 50,000 creator educators build and sell online courses, communities, and digital products. So, the technical career path. It often starts a bit like a ladder, so all sorts of different titles for these at different companies, but generally the path is pretty linear at first. Once you've reached senior, you've grown your technical skills, maybe you're leading projects, mentoring peers, setting best practices. But what's this next step? So traditionally, there's the management track. This is when you can start leading people, having direct reports. But a growing option in tech as well is this staff plus technical leadership route. And this is where you'll find titles like mine of principal engineer. And these two paths aren't a binary choice. So pivoting between the sides can actually help you build skills that are useful to the other side. Managers benefit from still keeping their technical skills strong, and technical leaders can benefit from building skills like empathy and influence. Today, though, I will be speaking to my experience on the right side, so growing in the more technical leadership direction as a principal engineer. I was hired at Thinkific as a senior full-stack engineer. Looking back now, I was really operating closer to what Thinkific now calls a staff engineer, but we were a smaller company back then and the level didn't exist yet. But pretty quickly, it became clear I was interested in aspects beyond my senior title. I was reaching beyond my immediate team to push technical strategies for the wider company. And I was really interested in growing more in the architecture direction. So when a position for principal engineer opened up, I was encouraged to apply. And I got the role, but there was a lot of naivety in my decision to take it. Because on paper, a fancier sounding title with more seniority, it sounds like this natural progression up the career ladder. But the role is a really big shift in responsibilities. Because what even is a principal engineer? It's just a title, and these titles can mean very different things at different companies. The role descriptions get vaguer. You get terms like influence and strategy and facilitate change and align business priorities and all these other great qualities, which are all excellent sounding words, but what does that actually mean as a day-to-day job? Coming into the role, I really had a limited understanding of the expectations, and I didn't fully understand how much I would have to learn to do the job effectively without burning out. So 3 years on, since taking the role, I've summarized my learnings for you into 4 core lessons. Understand the role, prioritize yourself, uplift others, and strategize. The way I see it, each of these lessons builds on each other. So you do need to understand the role to know what to prioritize in your own self-growth. And you need to have that self-stability before you can properly uplift others. And you need to be supporting others to really effectively strategize and reach this enlightenment stage, or something like it. All right, let's unpack each of those. So number 1, understand the role. So one thing I can say with certainty is principal engineer is a very different job to my job as a senior. And yes, one key difference for me is I do spend less time programming. I'm still active in the code base, but it's not my core focus anymore. When I do code, it tends to be more investigative or exploratory proof of concepts. The principal engineer role at my company is a bit of a mix between a tech lead and an architect, working with more than one team. So I define a technical vision for a particular business line, and then I lead teams in that domain to deliver feature projects, delegating the execution to the teams themselves and mostly focusing on the high-level strategy. My company's definition of principal engineer, by the way, is just one flavor of the staff plus role. Those terms, tech lead and architect, are actually taken from Will Larson's book here on staff engineering. And he describes 4 different types of software engineer archetypes. And it's definitely worth having a read of his book to see some of the other ways the staff plus role can manifest that I won't speak as much about today. So currently I'm working with 3 teams, and it's centered around our product's learning experience. So this includes things like creator onboarding, product building, and student course taking. I work closest with each team's pod, which is an engineering manager, a design manager, and a product manager. And then we ideate and scope projects for the future while also working to keep the teams unblocked on current projects. And then simultaneously, I'm supporting engineers on the team with execution via code reviews, mentorship, and technical guidance. But I also play a role in coordination across other business lines, especially with more complex projects that might span multiple domains. An example of one such complex project, in 2022, I led an initiative to deliver this new communities product, which involved refactoring across our entire Rails monolith to support multiple products beyond just courses. And this touched a number of domains outside of my own, including things like payments, checkout, and integrations. So as a result, I work not only with my 3 teams, but with at least 5 other teams to coordinate the technical goals and the objectives across that larger project. This collaboration extends beyond engineering teams as well, to be more cross-functional across many areas of business. So I'm frequently interacting with design leadership, product leadership, data analysts, UX researchers, directors, executives. The role is just far more holistic. The more connections I make, the more knowledge I'm building of the way the entire organization functions. And it means I can have more support for moving some of these larger multi-team initiatives. A key difference at this level is having a longer-term view. So as a senior, I was normally thinking weeks or months ahead on sprint work. But as a principal, I'm thinking quarters, a year, or multiple years out. Instead of focusing on building a feature, I'm thinking further out towards visions for the future vision of our product. And this means thinking more about the bigger picture and how to make an impact. I don't have the overhead of managing direct reports, so I'm able to go much deeper on the technical and architecture side than I ever could in a more managerial role where my time would be taken up with people managing. Instead, I can really spend the time to understand technical problems that might be impacting more than one team. Overall, supporting multiple teams means I collect a lot more context. And with this high-level perspective, it's much easier to see the more impactful pieces to move and then influence them across my teams and the wider company. At this level, there's no one telling me what to do. I'm responsible for defining my own priorities. Choose your own adventure. And I really love this aspect, but it is a bit of a switch from senior when you're likely used to working off a predefined backlog of tasks. I have to craft my calendar really carefully to balance my time. But the role is also really dynamic, so from vendor integration calls to product strategy changes to production incidents, I have to be really flexible enough to adapt to what the week might throw at me, but also making space to keep working on my own strategic goals. And to do these tasks effectively, I'm having to utilize a lot of different kinds of skills. Leadership, strategizing, communication. These softer skills weren't taught in my computer science classes, but there is plenty of learning material out there. The critical part for me has been recognizing I have to be consciously upskilling in these softer skill areas. And so before doing what I did and just chasing the serotonin rush of a promotion, question honestly, are these the kind of tasks and skills ones that will actually interest you and energize you? At Thinkific, at least, there's a lot of room for growth in both senior and staff roles where you can continue to push your deep technical skills potentially a lot further than you're able to when you take on a more strategic leadership-focused role like principal engineer. So just understand the role of your company and question if it will fulfill you in those right ways for you. But if you do choose this path, it is going to present a lot of new types of challenges. And so this is what brings us to lesson 2. Prioritize yourself. Even as a senior, there can be a lot on your plate. Never-ending backlog of work, a lot of Slack messages. But for me, becoming principal took all of those challenges and then multiplied them by 10. Significantly more meetings, hundreds of Slack channels, more commitments, infinite problems. I really love tying this section to this concept of putting on your own oxygen mask first. You can't help others unless you can breathe yourself. You can't support your teams if you are overloaded yourself. And the only way I found to cope is to admit I couldn't do it all. Give up perfectionism. Quite honestly, I hated the role for more than a year. I wasn't getting any bad feedback, but as my own harshest critic, I just constantly felt like I was underperforming. The jump for me from senior straight to principal was really jarring. Thinkific has since added the staff role in between those levels, which allows for a bit more of a gradual transition into some of those new responsibilities while still being on just a single team. But I jumped straight from senior to principal and supporting 3 teams, and honestly, I struggled. Feelings of inadequacy crept up, my old friend imposter syndrome came back, and signs of burnout really started to nag at me. So after a period of trying to do everything for everyone, I had to find better ways to cope. In my early days, I thought a lot of my problems came from time management. Meetings. Being involved in more areas of the business means you are going to spend more time in discussions. And for me, as a semi-introvert, nothing burns me out quite the way hours of back-to-back meetings do. So calendar control is really important. And I've put a lot of work into my calendar, so balancing focus time against still getting enough face time with all of my teams. But a lot of it, for me, has really come down to prioritization. If everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. In the name of accountability, I've started writing out my priorities. The most important thing I found is to identify a top priority and then actually prioritize it. And this means limiting distractions. Techniques I use to cope with the number of conversations I'm pulled into these days is I try and avoid multitasking while in meetings. Multitasking is a lie. You're doing both things worse, probably. I try to make intentional Slack focus blocks, so save messages for later, bump more complex requests to later in the day or the week if necessary. And it's also just meant muting channels and trusting if folks need my input, they will tag me. And for me, it's also really helped setting up a support network. So I asked another more senior principal engineer to be my mentor. I started getting more formal check-ins with my manager. I started being more honest with my peers. And I found accountability buddies for building healthier habits at work. Finding this kind of support, though, means making connections with your teams, but also beyond. The more I networked and built good relationships, the more advocates I was able to find across the company. And this has helped me feel both more connected, but also move initiatives with less friction. And the best way to find places to improve yourself is through reflection. What's worked? What didn't? What do we want to do next time? Each week, I write out my wins and learnings for the week alongside a prioritized to-do list. This is a screenshot from my this week's document from Notion for reference. Present at RailsConf. Check. And maybe even try to talk to a counsellor. A lot of us in tech have great health benefits, so why not use them? I found a counsellor who specialised in burnout, and they gave me a great number of tangible exercises and tools I'm still using today. Since then, my active mantra has become good enough over perfect, and I held myself accountable to that. For a while, every week, I reflected with my manager to give tangible examples of times that week I had given up something, accepting that it was good enough. Perfectionism, after all, is really a form of insecurity. And in tech, I do believe perfect does not exist, and aiming for it is a recipe for burnout. All right, so you've got that oxygen mask on. Now you are more equipped to get to step 3, uplifting others. So impact at this level no longer comes from your ability to solve problems, but your ability to grow your team to solve their own problems. And I really believe this. My effectiveness as a technical leader really comes from empowering my teams. I'm not the one delivering anymore, it's my teams. And part of this is accepting that you are a role model. This is the name of a chapter from Tanya Riley's book, The Staff Engineer's Path. Highly recommend this book. But you're a role model now, sorry. People look up to me and they follow my example, so I have to act responsibly. I do need technical competency enough to be setting a solid direction and keeping high standards so that people following my lead aren't following bad practices. But that doesn't mean I can't make mistakes. It just requires a degree of self-awareness, so being open about what I know and what I don't know. Don't be afraid to show your human side. If you do make a mistake, or rather, when you make a mistake, own it. Lead by example and set a culture of learning and growing. And then there is coaching and mentorship. So at the principal level, my mentor focus is more on the senior and staff engineers. So I'm often uplifting their skills even beyond the technical into things like getting visibility, leading projects, and how to effectively mentor their own mentees. For more formal mentorship sessions, I found it really useful to set clear objectives with your mentees. What do you want to achieve from the session? How long will they go for? What format suits their learning style? And then reflect on that objective frequently to make sure they're getting what they need out of the sessions. And really make an effort to ask more questions than you answer. People learn by doing their own thinking, not by you always giving them the answers. But the biggest game changer of this role for me was trust. I have to learn to let things go. By empowering my teams with opportunities, especially ones I might have been considering doing myself, it helps with the stress of my workload while also letting them grow. Everybody wins. Trust them to lead projects, even if you think they might not do the task as well as yourself. Give them the opportunities anyway. It's only by trying, and sometimes even by making mistakes, that I've seen my engineers really flourish and grow. Overall, be their advocate. Even though I'm not a manager, I can still be really influential in my engineers' career growth, both by upskilling them myself, but also in finding them opportunities and helping them get visibility. My influence can mean my recommendations also carry weight, and some of my proudest moments have been seeing my engineers get promoted after I've helped provide tangible examples of their good performance to their manager. Principal engineers should act as a force multiplier. This is in our blurb for principal engineer at Thinkific, and I really connected with this term, force multiplier. I think this is why I get the same satisfaction out of the role, despite the fact I'm not coding anymore. Because selfishly, I can achieve so much more via the achievements of my team. I can only write, refactor, and fix so much code. But supporting, mentoring, and influencing 3 teams of developers to write their best code, well, that's where this force multiplier factor comes in. 100 timesing what we can actually achieve together. All right, last step, step 4. Back to our meme, this is the true enlightenment stage. Technical strategy. These words were super intimidating to me when I first started. It sounds like you have everything figured out, and I did not. But as I got more grounded and I grew confident in my position, I did find technical strategy was really just a natural extension of ideas I'd been trying to push for years at companies to reduce risk, support scale, and improve development efficiency. The difference was now I had the power to really influence progress on these ideas. At Thinkific, our principal and architects group has started turning our brains into a more formal technical strategy document. So it now contains an annual goal and a set of guiding policies. And these both play into defining our long-term technical roadmap. And we share this widely and use it to advocate for projects or approaches that can incorporate these policies, to keep the team feeling aligned and that we're aiming for the same goals altogether. As an example, last quarter I used it to help nudge 2 of my teams to integrate our new federated GraphQL API, instead of defaulting to using our legacy API. I see my role not so much as a dictator for best practices, but for being a positive influence that guides the developers towards making good choices. When the pressure comes from above to deliver features, engineers can sometimes just be too close to the execution to feel confident about advocating for a preferred technology choice, especially when it impacts timelines. My position sometimes allows me to see these opportunities with more perspective, and my influence can allow me more power to make the case with product for a slightly higher investment in building something better, even if it takes slightly longer. In this case, the investment of time for the developers to onboard into the new API would pay off within months by avoiding rebuilds and maintenance on 2 separate APIs. But technical strategy can only be applied successfully when we keep in view the company strategy. And this includes the product roadmap. Feature projects are a clear indicator of where the business focus is right now and what parts of the application are seen as opportunities to invest in. Technical insights can be really influential on business decisions. Some projects won't move without technical investment first, and some projects have huge technical risks associated with them. But equally, a lot of technical work won't move if it doesn't align with company strategy. My role can help bridge this gap earlier, explaining the risks to stakeholders, but also finding opportunities. An example, last quarter, I had an initiative to bring this new type of product, digital downloads, where our creators can sell just a single file like an ebook or a PDF guide. Alongside this project, I pushed forward a technical initiative I'd been struggling to move before, which was to add additional security and access protection to our file uploads. By showing how the security might impact the success of this new product, I was then able to get support for bringing in that technical work as part of the larger project. A technique I used in that case was being able to identify and speak to the customer value of work. For digital downloads, I highlighted how the security work increased the value of the creator's intellectual property, and a lack of it could really hurt their sales. I believe all worthwhile technical work can be linked back to an underlying improvement for customers. The trick is widening your engineering brain to think more from a user perspective, and also accepting when something is not worthwhile, even if it is the preferred technical choice. Also keep in mind, money is an influential factor. I've become much more aware of how much my company's financial position impacts my technical decisions. One of my first projects as principal was re-architecting our notification system. Initially, I proposed this fully managed distributed Kafka architecture for streaming notification events. And this was shot down pretty quickly due to the high costs of such a technology. And in 2022, business investment at Thinkific was just focused on other important areas. Money influences decisions about what to build and buy, but also hiring and resources. And in many cases, it can mean accepting a compromise on technical ideas. But demonstrating the ways a project can pay back costs is probably also the easiest way to move projects. So last quarter, I put together a proposal for this really quick win feature, archiving Thinkific courses. Our customer support team was spending a lot of time responding to requests to delete course data. So in my proposal, I calculated the cost of customer support team salaries being spent on these tickets, and then compared it to the estimate for engineering time to actually build archival as a feature. The math was really simple. The feature would be net positive by the end of the quarter. And the financial impact also compounds year after year because building it's a one-off cost, but the time saved in support tickets will continue indefinitely. Bonus, this feature made customers really happy. So, communicating technical visions with these kind of stakeholders and advocating strategically might not be a skill you have by default. At least I did not. It's one of those more subtle skills I feel I'm still continuing to build up, and it requires entirely new types of communication and thinking patterns. It's hard, but it can also be really rewarding because it is possible by putting on both your technical hat and your product hat that you can find this incredible sweet spot where there's this opportunity to advance both technical strategy and product strategy at the same time. And a key element to that is learning to think beyond execution. So as engineers, we have a tendency to focus on the practical limitations of solutions. I've definitely been really guilty of this throughout my career, shooting down ideas with the many technical reasons about why they were too hard. Instead, I try and now apply a yes and mentality. So rather than shooting something down, try pivoting it or redirecting it or expanding thinking outside of the box. The reality is people don't like their ideas being shot down. Instead, work together, think creatively, and make compromises that actually get ideas moving. And it's only by putting this emphasis on collaboration that I found myself invited to the room. And you'll know what I mean by this concept of the room if you've been inside it. It's when you're involved in conversations before decisions are made. You're frequently asked for your opinion on directions or ideas, and you can feel yourself influencing strategic choices. You may think you get invited to the room by default at this level, and that is true for some rooms, but it's not always the case. No designer, for example, is going to invite you to their early explore sessions if you're always going to shoot down all their creative ideas. From my experience, the invitations come by earning respect and having really open-minded conversations with authentic interactions with all levels of business. So when you're given opportunities to collaborate, demonstrate the value you bring by providing a constructive technical voice early in the process. All right, we've looked at our 4 steps. Understand the role, prioritize yourself, uplift others, and strategize. What's next? Well, I propose coming back to that first one, to go beyond the understanding and redefine the role. As I see it now, the job is pretty flexible. There's no need to put yourself into this predefined box. Different companies have different definitions of the job, but the reality as I've seen it is the role can just work really differently for different kinds of people. So reflect on what you're doing, gather feedback, learn from mistakes, and then ask what elements actually energize you, and redefine the job for yourself. What do you want to get from it, and what works for your personality and working style? So, after 3 years of this journey as a principal, do I like my job? Yeah, it turns out I do. It took me a bit to get over the hump, I'll admit, but I'm pretty happy with the place I'm at now, having redefined the role to work for me. It's meant I can spread my influence beyond a single pair of coding hands. I get to collaborate with folks from all over the business, and I feel closer to customers, driving value for them through technical strategy. Overall, I feel like I have more impact and more respect. As a woman in tech, I have wasted a lot of energy trying to convince people I'm good at my job. And there is one thing to be said about titles: they give you a degree of respect without you having to prove it all the time, which is now 1 ounce of energy I can put into something more meaningful. So, the core ideas I'd really like you to leave with are these. Staff plus roles require more than just technical skills. Applying technical strategy requires leadership, collaboration, and creative thinking. So give yourself space to learn and grow these new skills. Secondly, your teams are greater than just you. Most of this job now should be about going beyond yourself to focus on others, growing your teams and your wider company. And finally, embrace my mantra of good enough over perfect. Except in tech, we can't do it all, we can't fix it all. So find the areas you can make the most impact and put your energy into the things that really matter. So if you've been considering a staff plus role, I hope this has given you an insight into what the role might look like compared to a senior role. And if you're already in a staff plus role, I hope you're able to take something from the techniques I use to perform this role more effectively. I would also love to hear about your experiences and learnings in similar roles, so I will be here a bit afterwards to come, if anyone wants to come chat, or come find me at the social events later on. That's my name, place to find me online. And 2 excellent books I mentioned, if you haven't read them. Yeah, thank you for joining me and listening.